I was born in Shelby, Ohio. To I had My mother was Mary Schaefer. Well, actually, she was Mary Miley then, and my father's name was Harold Miley. I have an older brother who's 5 years older than I am. I have an older sister who is 3.5 years older than I am, and I was the baby of the family for 9 years. So I was kind of spoiled for a while. But then we had a younger brother who's 9 years younger than I am. And his name, should I say their names? His name is David. My sister's name is Susan. My brother's name is Bob or Robert. My older brother was very, very smart in school. He always got straight A's. And so when my sister and I went through, they expected us to be just as smart. We were not. But, well, we always got A's and B's, so we were okay. But anyway, one of my earliest memories was my grandpa Yarman, who is my mother Mary's father. He was. Used to always come and visit us, and he always brought me a big bag of M&Ms because I was the baby and I was spoiled. But he told me I had to share with my older brother and sister, which I reluctantly did, but I always kept the red ones. And they all tasted the same. I don't know why, but I always kept the red ones because I thought they were special. So anyway, so that was my Grandpa Yarman, but unfortunately he died when I was about 6 years old. And so then I didn't have him anymore. And my Grandma Yarman had already passed away. She passed away when my older brother was a baby, so I didn't get to know her at all. And then my father's parents lived far away. They lived about 3 hours away. So we only saw them about once a year. So, I really didn't have a lot of grandparents, but close. But, I had a normal childhood. We went to church every Sunday. We were brought up in the Lutheran church, and we went to Sunday school and church, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed learning about religion and about Jesus and all of that. And I still go. I still enjoy that. And one of the things I remember from my childhood, I had an uncle that I just dearly loved. And when I was about 3 or 4, he used to put me on his shoulders. And we were running around. He was running around the park. I was on his shoulders. And he tripped and fell. And I cut my knee and had to go get stitches. And that was kind of a traumatic memory, but he felt so badly. But then a couple years later, he contracted polio and he passed away. So it was very sad, but yeah. But anyway, then I remember grade school. I liked school. The older kids used to tell us the teachers were mean and try to scare us. And I had one teacher that I was really scared of when I was in second grade because I thought she was mean. That's what the older kid said, but she really wasn't. And I guess when she had white hair, but when she was younger, she had red hair, so she kind of liked me. So I got along fine with her. I'm trying to think of some childhood memory. Also, when I was about 10 or 11, I was homesick from school that day, and I turned on the TV, and Walter Cronkite was the newscaster, and he was always very, I would say stoic, stern maybe, but he would just say the news. He didn't add any opinion or anything else. Well, they came on with a special bulletin, and he was like real upset. And he said President Kennedy had been sniped. And I thought, sniped? I thought when you went snipe hunting, that was fake. I didn't know that was a thing. So anyway, I was very confused as an 11-year-old, I thought, what does that mean? But then later when my parents came home, we found out that he had been assassinated. And everybody was really sad and really upset. And as a child, it's hard to understand all that. Well, adults probably don't understand it either. But that was kind of a traumatic memory. But then my parents argued a lot, and they didn't get along a lot, and it was my older brother was 16, so I would have been about 11 or 12. And my father locked my mother in the garage and wouldn't let her out, so it was kind of a bad thing. But anyway, that's the kind of things they argued about. They ended up getting divorced, and we moved into town. And then went on to junior high school. And I had a lot of friends, and we had fun. We lived in an apartment, an upstairs apartment. It was my sister Susan and my mother and my little brother David and I. And it was okay. And we stayed there for a couple years. And then my mother met Robert Schaefer, Bob Schaefer, and she married him. So then we moved into a house. And that was where we stayed until I graduated from high school. And after high school, I went to the Ohio State School of Cosmetology and I was dating someone who I was madly in love with, but the school was in Columbus, which is about an hour and a half away. So I went for about 1,000 hours, and I think you had to have 1,500 hours to graduate. I went about 1,000 hours, and I did fine. It was okay, but it wasn't my favorite thing. Well, the person I was in love with talked me into quitting, so I quit and didn't finish. Yes, beauty school dropout, that's me. So anyway, I dropped out of beauty school. And then I came home, and I'm sorry for that little song there. But anyway, I came home and got married that May. And we originally had a trailer, and we moved to that. And then a year later, after a year, then I had my eldest child, which was Jeff Bloomfield. And then 5 years after that, I had Alicia, his little sister. And then 3 years after that, Brad. And so I had 3 children. And we lived out in the country. And it was a hard time then too, because some things my ex-husband had a lot of baggage from serving in Vietnam. And there were a lot of things that happened. So I kind of always excused a lot of abuse because I knew he had problems. But anyway, so we worked through all that, but then it got very physical, so we ended up getting divorced. But while the kids were younger, I started going to college at night, and I became a teacher. And then I taught 5th grade for about 16 years, and then I taught remedial reading and computer lab. And I loved both of those. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the children and the students. They were pretty good. So I taught in a small school, rural school, and the kids were not, we had problems, but they were not too bad. But after that, then my son, Jeffrey, had graduated from college, and he met his wife, Hazel, and they got married, and they had a little girl, Grace, and then they had Drew, and then they had Priya. So I have 3 grandchildren there. And then Alicia, my daughter, married David Sheely, and they had Brooke, a little girl, and then they had Trent. And so I have 5 grandchildren. And let's see, after that, then after 31 years of teaching, I retired. And then after that, I subbed, and sometimes still sub, but not too much. And now my granddaughter, Grace, has married, and she has a little boy, Nathan. And so now I'm a great-grandma. So that's pretty much how my life has gone. When I was little, I remember I must have been about 5. And we had moved my mom and dad built a new house. It was small, but I had an older brother, an older sister, and me. We were the children. And I thought the toilet seat in the bathroom was too white. So I took my mother's red lipstick and I colored the entire toilet seat red with my mother's red lipstick. I kind of got in trouble over that, although not real bad. I don't remember getting a spanking, but that was one of my creative things I did when I was young. But I had a really good friend next door who was a couple years younger than I. We used to play outside all the time, and we would just play tag and kick the can. And we had a bunch of children in the neighborhood. We played kick the can. That was one of our favorite games, and tag. And it was fun. We had one telephone in our kitchen, and we were on a party line. And this old lady that lived up the road always picked up the phone and listened into our conversations. Usually children, when I was little, the kids weren't allowed to use the phone too much unless it was an emergency or something. But we were always getting annoyed because that lady always picked up the phone and always listened in. And you would hear this big click, and you knew she was listening to you again. So that was our telephone. We had one phone in the kitchen. It was a black one. And I just remember, and I remember our telephone number was 22205. I remember our telephone number. I had to memorize that. The other time I was kind of ornery, I guess you could say. My parents both had to work. My mom worked at the Sales Book Factory, and my dad worked at Westinghouse in Mansfield. And so we had to get ourselves on the bus in the morning. Our bus driver was not very patient. And my older brother was in charge of getting my sister and myself on the bus. Well, one morning, the bus would pull up and he'd beep the horn. And boy, if you weren't out there in like 1 minute, he'd take off. So my brother and my sister ran out there. I couldn't find my shoes. I don't know what I did with them. And it was cold out. It was winter. And I wasn't going out, so the bus took off without me. This was second grade. So I stayed home by myself. My brother was in big trouble when my mom got home that night. But I remember climbing up on the cupboard and getting out soda crackers. And we had a little bit of Pepsi in the refrigerator, and I drank that. So all day long I ate soda crackers and drank Pepsi. But anyway, that was another kind of funny story from my childhood. But we had a pretty good time. When I was going into 7th grade, we moved into town, and I had grown up learning how to twirl a baton. So I tried out for majorette, and I made it. I was a majorette in 7th grade, and we had these little white boots and the whole outfit. So it was kind of fun. And then the next year it was time for tryouts again. And the band director, this was when my parents were going through a divorce, so I obviously ate my feelings. But anyway, the band director told me I needed to lose 20 pounds. And I didn't do it. I quit band. So, yeah, they don't do that anymore. They were getting big trouble now for doing that. But because I could twirl, I could do all the moves. I was just a little bit chubby, chunky, whatever. But yeah, which I still am. But anyway, yeah. So then in high school, my favorite subject in high school was choir. I loved to sing, loved choir. And we had a choir director that had just graduated from college, and he was really fun. And he would bring in songs that were being playing on the radio. So we thought he was so cool. And we got to go to state contests in Columbus and got ones. So our choir was really good, and we just really liked him. So that was my favorite subject. Wasn't really good in math. I got B's, but got A's and everything else. But B's in math, I always kind of messed that up for some reason. I think I have it right, and I didn't. So, but I got by. So it was okay. Yeah, so and then I graduated from high school. I was the youngest one in my graduating class. I was 17, and I didn't turn 18 till the next fall. And I still am the youngest one in my graduating class. I'm not going to tell you how old I am now. But anyway, I still am the youngest. And we have monthly, our class tries to get together for monthly luncheons. So that's kind of nice. So, but that was fun. And then I went on to beauty school, and I told you about that before. And then after that, got married and had children. So that's about my life growing up. When my oldest, Jeff, went to kindergarten, he was very upset about going to kindergarten. Well, actually, I think he was just kind of nervous, but I told him he'd do a great job. And when he got there, he really did like it, but I cried all the way home because I wasn't ready for him to go to kindergarten. But however, he was, 5 going on 6 or whatever the age was then, and he was ready. So that's how I just wasn't ready for that yet. But he did a great job and he liked school. So, and I was very proud of him because he did make friends, even though sometimes once in a while I'd get a call. I got a call that that he was throwing blocks with another boy. So I had to talk to him about how that was not right and you could get hurt. But he really took that to heart, I think, or else he learned to hide it better. Anyway, yeah, that was when he went to kindergarten. When he was in grade school, this is Jeff, the oldest one. He got good grades, and I was very proud of him because he always studied hard. He learned how to read quickly, and that I was proud of that. And then when Alicia started school, she started kindergarten. Jeff was he is 5 years older than her, so he was in the upper grades, and he knew he wasn't supposed to get into trouble. So one time I had to get after him because he was talking too much in class. And I just told the teacher to move him, but she'd already tried that. So that made me a little nervous, but Jeff was always, I could talk to him and he would understand. Alicia never really got into trouble. She loved school. Actually, all 3 of them pretty much liked school, which was great. I do remember when Jeff was old. Jeff was 5 years older than his sister, and then 9 years older than his little brother. Sometimes he would babysit for them, and I was very glad that he would do that. But he would cook for them, and he used to make something with hamburger. I don't know what it was. But anyway, they liked it. So, and I think Alicia and Brad idolized their older brother. And that always made me proud too, that he would take care of them. And I was actually proud of all of them. But I'm trying to think of stories that I would go to their games. All of them had games. Alicia played volleyball. Jeff played basketball and baseball and football at one point. But I was always very proud of them. I loved going to their games and watching them because they really tried hard to do whatever sport it was to their best ability. Brad wasn't too much into sports. He was more into music, so he was the field commander for the band and things like that. And I was proud of him for his area of expertise. But growing up, they really, they looked forward to Christmas. And of course, when they were teenagers, sometimes I would catch them looking in my bedroom window when I was wrapping their presents because they were trying to find out what they got for Christmas. But so I had to make sure I had all the drapes pulled and everything. But one time, I think Alicia might have told on Jeff. He had unwrapped his presents. So I decided that we would take out his he had got all these new clothes and things. So we took those out and got stuff out of his closet and wrapped him in the Christmas present. And when he opened it, he said, "Hey, I've got one just like this in my closet." I thought that was really funny. Actually, now I think about it, it was kind of mean. But, and then he opened the second one. "Hey, I've got something like this too." And by the third one, he caught on that we had rewrapped. So then I went and got his real presents and gave them to him. But that was one of the things that happened. They used to have, I very much wanted to celebrate their birthdays, all 3 of them. So when it was their birthday, I would let them choose what they wanted me to cook for their birthday dinner. And sometimes they would have friends over, sometimes not. But I was always very happy to celebrate their birthdays with them and get them a special present. So sometimes we had tacos, sometimes we had sloppy joes, whatever they wanted for dinner. But we celebrated birthdays that way, and I love doing that. I love doing Easter baskets at Easter time, and the Easter Bunny always came. And it's funny because when Jeff had to be 9, and Alicia would have been 4 or 5, Brad was born, and Brad was born on Good Friday. So I fixed Jeff and Alicia's Easter baskets and put them in the freezer and gave them to Grandma, my mom, and because she watched them while I was having Brad. And so I was really relieved because I didn't want them to be without their Easter baskets or not to have an Easter egg hunt or the Easter Bunny. So I remember that when they were growing up. That was kind of a fun time. We didn't go on too many vacations because, financially we weren't that well. We were okay, but we weren't well off. We weren't, rich by any means. And so I was trying to think, we did go to Walt Disney World when they were little. I think Brad was only about 3. And that was a lot of fun. I had a great time there. Of course, I couldn't go on the spinny rides, but but we went on. I think all of them liked Space Mountain. Brad was too little, but they liked all the different rides, and that was a fun trip because it was fun to take them there, and they enjoyed that. But they all did pretty well in school because they knew they were expected to, and they did what they were supposed to. I was always proud of them, and. Halloween, I remember once, I just thought of something else. Once, we always had a Halloween parade in my hometown of Shelby where I grew up. So this was before Brad was born. Jeff and Alicia, Alicia was Little Red Riding Hood and Jeff dressed up as a big bad wolf. And we had a red radio flyer wagon, and he pulled her in his wagon, and they won a prize for that. They were so cute, and I was so tickled to help them get those costumes, and they won a prize. But just things like that growing up, and we just did normal family things, and it was a fun time raising my children. I love them dearly, still do, but yeah, it had a lot of fun with my kids growing up. I was raised in the Lutheran Church, and I always went to Sunday school. And of course, it was a lot of fun because we sang songs about Jesus, learned about Jesus and faith growing up. When I was in 7th grade, we had catechism, and you did a 3-year study about the faith and what you believed. And that's when you accepted Jesus into your heart, and you made a public declaration of your faith in front of the church, and you were confirmed into the church and became a member. And so we used to go, I believe it was on Wednesday nights after school, and we did that for 3 years. Wow, that's a lot of study. But we learned all about Jesus and his life, and of course God and the Old Testament and the New Testament and all the different things that are involved in religion and in our religion. And I really enjoyed it, and I've always loved going to church. I play in the bell choir, I sing in the choir. To me, that's part of giving back. We have a Thanksgiving dinner every Thanksgiving, and I go and serve at that. And we also have a food pantry that I serve in. I work in the food pantry once a month and help people that are less fortunate and need to come and get food. And I find that very fulfilling. I really like to do that. And that's a good expression, I think, of your faith, besides giving monetarily and showing up. But it's nice to have a community that supports you at church, and you pray for each other, and my faith means a lot to me. And I really attribute that to my mother, who took us to church growing up and installed that faith in me. And I wouldn't be without a church family. It just means a lot. And I believe in Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit, the whole 9 yards. And wouldn't be without it. I think the thing I'm the most proud of in my life, of course, I'm very proud of all my children, my grandchildren, and all that. But the thing I'm the most proud of is when I was 26, I went back to college at night and started taking classes to be a teacher. And currently I have 3 degrees, the highest one being my master's, and I just love teaching. So that's the thing I am the most proud of. I still like working with students. It took me a while to get through college because I started just part-time at night since I had children at home. But I really enjoyed working with other teachers, helping students learn how to read. And like I said before, math is not my great subject, but I could help the elementary kids with math. I was okay elementary-wise. But anyway, I would think my greatest achievement is my master's degree and helping students, not so much my degree, but helping the students learn. I always got really tickled when I would see the light bulb go off in their eyes and they would understand something. That just meant the world to me. And that's probably my greatest achievement. Okay, I think the greatest challenge was trying to keep my marriage together. I was married to someone who was abusive. There were lots of reasons for that. And I kind of always felt sorry for him because he had been through a lot of trauma. So I tried to always keep that in mind. But the abuse got worse and worse, so that finally, and we had gone to counseling. We'd gone to counseling many times. One of the counselors he wanted to go to, which I always let him choose because of his trauma. One of the counselors was a Vietnam vet as well, and we went to him a few times. And then our counselor committed suicide. So that's the kind of things we were up against. So it was not easy, but yes, it was traumatic. And finally, it got worse and worse until my grown children convinced me that I was going to be hurt very badly because I was strangled and some other things. But anyway, I don't want to get into all that. But so then after many years of marriage and trying, and I felt very, very badly. It upset me a lot. But we got divorced. And because I didn't really want to give up. I wanted to keep trying. We'd tried so many years, at least I had anyway, to try to make this work. But that was my biggest challenge. But then I went through individual counseling myself, and I went to a man who was a minister, and then he had a psychology degree as well, counseling. And he helped me to realize, and this was part of my faith as well, that God does not want you to stay somewhere where you're going to be hurt. God does not want you to be hit or strangled or, other things. So he helped me walk through that because I really didn't want to let God down, I guess is basically what it was, because I'd made a promise in front of God. However, when we got married, I was very young and, but you just don't realize a lot of things. But that was the biggest challenge. And then as I healed from that, I went to counseling for a couple of years, and that helped me work through all of those feelings. And I think I have forgiven him. And I always did realize that, there was more going on there than meets the eye. But that was my biggest challenge. But I feel that I've worked through that, and things are good now, and I'm happy. Some of the things that I really look forward to now are a lot of our family traditions. We have my oldest son, Jeff, is married to Hazel, and they had a beautiful wedding. That was gorgeous. And I got to sing at that wedding with my mother and my daughter, and we sang a song for Jeff and Hazel, and that was fun. And then Jeff and Hazel have 3 children, Grace, and Grace is married now to Hunter, and they have a little boy, Nathan. And then there's Drew and there's Priya. And I love it when they all come to my house. I just really love that. My daughter Alicia's married to David, and they have Brooke and Trent. And we bake cookies at Christmas. At Thanksgiving, we do Turkey Bowl, where we have teams and we all compete for these little tiny trophies, and it's pretty fun. And then we have, of course, a good Thanksgiving meal. Christmas, we have Christmas presents. I buy for all of them, and they always buy me stuff too. But we do the present game, where we have these presents that you roll dice. If you get doubles, it's all junk presents. So that's the present game's fun. And you roll dice, you get doubles, you grab a present from in the middle, and at the end, everybody gets a gift card usually. But we have fun with that, and we have this one thing is called Tingle Toes. It's just nasty, but it looks like it came from I don't know where, but it's a toe massager, and nobody wants to get it because it's really yucky. So this year, my younger brother David's girlfriend Jean got Tingle Toes. He forgot to warn her about it. So then a week after Christmas and everyone was gone, I opened my sweater drawer to get a sweater out, and there was Tingle Toes. So my younger brother hid that in my drawer. So I mailed it back to him. And that's the kind of fun things we do at Christmas. But I put his girlfriend's return address on it because I knew he wouldn't open it if he saw it was from me. And so he got Tingle Toes back. But anyway, and usually I find stuff all over my house where they've hidden white elephant gifts, But we do fun things like that. We've been on vacations where one year we went to this a condo, and it was on top. It was really nice. It was in Florida, and it was on the top floor. That's what I'm trying to say. But I think that's the place that had a lazy river. And there was a lazy river the kids could float in, and there was a pool. And I remember, I believe it was Drew that said, "Oh my gosh, somebody pooped in the lazy river." They closed it down. So we had to close the river. We couldn't have the lazy river for a couple days till they sanitized it all. But we've had fun. We go on vacations, usually to the beach or a warm climate, and go see different things that are in that area. But I look forward to that. I look forward to more holidays, and I look forward to more vacations because we have a lot of fun together. And I enjoy all of my grandkids, and I hope my great-grandchild, he's only 5 months now, Nathan, but I'm hoping as he gets older we can all do things together. And I'm really looking forward to traveling and doing fun things with them. Some historical events I lived through. As I mentioned before, JFK's assassination, when Walter Cronkite came on. But as a child, I really wasn't sure what was going on. As I grew up, we had some boys that had graduated from my high school that were killed in Vietnam. The Vietnam War really ramped up, and they were sending a lot of people over there, a lot of boys. And that was very sad because we lost, a couple of them went to our church, and we lost a couple boys, and I felt so bad for their parents. That was really a tough time. There were lots of protests, and my older brother went to Wittenberg College, and they protested a lot down there. And I think he was involved in some of the protests, but I was always, as a teenager, I didn't want to get involved in any of that because I was too nervous, and I was always afraid of getting in trouble. So I didn't want to get in trouble. But so that the Vietnam War drug on till, I believe, in the early 70s, and they finally pulled everybody out of there. So that, and I may have that wrong, but that was a very traumatic time, and everyone knew someone who had gotten killed in Vietnam. And even the small, I was in a very small town, and we had some people, I I think we ended up with like 11 boys that got killed from our town. And so that was a lot for a small town. So almost everybody knew somebody who had died over there. And so that affected us. We were very, very upset about that and scared, but we were glad when that was finally over. And then I remember, I'm trying to remember historical events. When I was teaching, and I was teaching 5th grade, and we had another teacher that had been retired a couple years, and she came into, this was 9/11. She came into our school, and she came down to our classroom and called us out in the hall. And she said, "The United States is under attack." And we looked at her and we said, "What? What are you talking about?" Because nobody would attack the United States. We are just such a powerful country. Nobody's going to attack us. She said, "I'm telling you, they're flying airplanes into buildings. We're under attack." And we, the other 5th grade teacher and I, we didn't know what to do. We said, "Do we tell the kids? And we asked the principal, we said, are we going to send them home? What should we do?" And everybody was really upset then too, because nothing like that had ever happened before. And so we didn't know. And at 5th grade level, those kids are 11, 12, or 10 or 11. You don't know what to say. And so we finally decided the principal said we'd go through the day as normal. And we didn't say anything to the children. The students, we thought, well, we're going to let their parents, because nobody understood it. How can you explain that? You can't explain airplanes crashing into buildings and all these people getting killed. And so we didn't explain it, and we sent them home, and we didn't have school the next day. They canceled school. So, but then after that, the next week we went back to school, and the kids really didn't seem to notice. Either their parents didn't tell them or they didn't watch the news, which was okay because there was really no way to explain that. So that was one historical thing. Another one was COVID. When we had COVID, everything was shut down, and one of the principals hired me to teach online. So I had the elementary kids online for that year after COVID. And a lot of them wouldn't turn their assignments in. Same as when you're at school. Some of them turn the work in and they're great and they do it right away. And some of them don't care. But that was tough because they had to do it on their computers. And some of the kids love that because they love using their computers. And some of them hate it. So it seemed like during COVID there was no in between. Either they did great or they did awful. So that was a year that was pretty tough. But we got through that, and then everything seemed to go back to normal, pretty much to normal. But I'm not very much of a political person, so I kind of stay out of politics because I don't think either side tells us the truth. So it's kind of hard. But those two things really stand out in my memory as being historical things that happened in my life. There have been many new technologies that have come out during my lifetime. The computer is one. I remember after I was teaching for about 15 years or so, I wrote a grant and I got a big computer. And it took up the whole one of the desk, and the keyboard was huge. And we call it, I think people call them trash 80s, TRS 80s. And the students really fought for time on that computer. They liked to do, I can't remember the game they liked to play, but it had a floppy disk. It had this big square floppy disk that you put in, and it was fun. And the kids really liked it. They loved typing on it. And that was the first computer that I had during my teaching years. And then when I did the computer lab, we had some more modern ones, but they weren't as modern as they are now. And nobody had a cell phone back then. That was about 15 years into my teaching. We didn't even have a telephone in our rooms. We had to go to the office when you wanted to call home or call something. So that has all changed. All the rooms have phones in them. Everybody has a cell phone in their pocket now, and they carry little computers around with them, and you can look up anything online. That has really changed over the years. The first computers, like that big one I told you, it would take at least 15 minutes to go online, sometimes a half an hour. and it would be very, very slow. So if you were going to look up information, you better have 4 or 5 hours to wait on it and look up all your information. It took forever, but that has really changed, and you can just look things up on your phone now like that, and it's wonderful. Well, it's wonderful and it's bad because it has a good and bad side to it too. But technology has really advanced in my lifetime. So, and I think advice I would give to someone: be true to yourself, know your own feelings, always look out for other people. Try to treat people the way you want to be treated. That's my piece of advice. Treat everyone the way you want to be treated, and know that you have a lot of worth and this world needs you.